Hello, students. So, the last class we spoke about the biotic resources, and I gave you all a introduction about the abiotic resources. Now, when we talk about the abiotic resources, what are we talking about those? As I said in my last class, the world's oceans contain tremendous abiotic resources which have been partially exploited, means they have not been fully used to the optimum till date. The most common resource are sodium chloride. So that is common salt. Sorry. A large number of metallic and non-metallic minerals are found on the ocean floor. Example, potassium occurs in large quantity. As I said, there are a lot of minerals which can be found. Limestone is found extensively in the tropical oceans of the world as a result of precipitate material by corals and plants. Limestone is formed extensively. Here, gypsum forms during evaporation of seawater. The gypsum deposits are mined and converted. Now, this is another kind of mineral. What is it? It is mined and converted into plaster of Paris, which is commonly used in construction. The most common mineral extracted from the sea floor are petroleum and natural gas. So to obtain fish or mineral oil, development of technology is essential because they are available in deep oceans. Uh, Advancement of technology has helped to obtain a lot of mineral oil or obtain fish because of these because they are available in deep oceans. While obtaining these from biotic and abiotic resources, precaution should be taken to maintain the ecological balance. As I told you, we cannot disturb the ecosystem or the ecological value what a place holds. So there should be a maintenance of ecological balance within the environment, the oceanic environment. It is important to consider their uses with respect to sustainable development, which can help our future younger generation, and we've kept something for them. That means sustainable development. For uses of oceans for other purposes. Now, when we talk about uses of oceans for other purposes, for energy, tidal energy, when we talk about tidal energy, the phenomenon of tides releases large amounts of energy. That's high tide, low tides. We are well aware of this kind of energy. It can be used to generate electricity. Tidal energy is used to generate electricity. However, there are certain difficulties in tapping the tidal energy. Efforts are being made to tackle these limitations. In 2016, a massive tidal turbine in the Bay of Fundy, Nova Scotia, began generating electricity for the first time, enough to power 500 homes. Efforts to increase installation are being carried out. I will be talking about in my next slides more about these kinds of energy. This is we are getting to know what are the uses of energy wherein for tidal energy or thermal energy is concerned. The temperature differences of sea water helps in generating the energy. The surface water of the tropical region may have 25 degrees centigrade to 30 degrees centigrade of temperature, while the deep sea water may have less than 5 degrees. This gradient of temperature is used to run a generator to produce electricity. Floating generators based on temperature differences have been designed in Belgium and Cuba. Then for drinking water, as a purpose of drinking, due to high salt content in seawater, it is not suitable for drinking or for irrigation directly. But seawater can be converted into fresh water. Now, we know very well, students, the Earth's ocean is divided into the main oceans, which are the Pacific, the Atlantic, the Indian, the Arctic, and the Southern Ocean. When we talk about Pacific Ocean, which are the continents which are surrounding it? Asia, Australia, North America, and South America. Now the Atlantic Ocean over here, it is formed due to the tectonic forces which split up the Gondwana land. Look at the Indian Ocean over here. When we talk about the Indian Ocean also, it is named after the country of India. The Indian Ocean is home to many endangered sea creatures, including the turtles, seals, and dugongs, also known as sea cows. The Antarctic Ocean, it is known as the Antarctic Ocean as it surrounds the Antarctica. It is the coldest and wildest ocean in the world. The Arctic Ocean, when we talk about the Arctic Ocean, is the smallest ocean in the world. It surrounds the Arctic. Often the Arctic Ocean is completely covered with ice. The polar bears live on the ice that covers the ocean and can swim in water. Now, why are these oceans important? In the next class also we are going to study about why these oceans are important. But we need to know something about it as in now at a very basic level. Oceans make up over 70% of the Earth's surface. There are over 7 lakh different species of animals that live in the ocean. It is important to protect the oceans to make sure their habitats are safe. The ocean is so full of tiny plants which help to produce oxygen which we need to breathe. On top of this, oceans also provide food for many creatures including humans. Now, when I talk about the tidal power or the tidal energy, what is it called? The tidal power, also called tidal energy, is a form of hydropower that converts the energy of tides into useful forms of power, mainly electricity. This is the only form of energy whose source is the moon. Basic physics of tides, let's understand that. There's gravitational pull of the sun and the moon. The pull of the centrifugal force of rotation of the Earth-Moon system. There are 2 high tides and low tides during each period of rotation of the Earth. So when the Earth is rotating round, there are 2 high tides and low tides during each period of the rotation of the Earth. How the tides come and go. When we look at this, how do they work when we talk about tidal energy? If you look at the polar view, the Earth is rotating. The minimum is at low tide, the maximum is high tide. When you see over here, the moon is in the straight line, it bulges. The Earth is bulging out and it stays approximately aligned with the moon. So now what happens? The gravitational force of the moon causes. Why the gravitational force? Because there is a gravitational pull of the sun and the moon. The gravitational force of the moon causes the oceans to bulge along an axis pointing directly at the moon. The magnitude of this attraction depends on the mass of the object and its distance away. Spring tides. When we talk about spring tides, there is moon tide, there is new moon, there is sun tide. These are full moon. There are different types of tides. I'm just giving you all information about the different tides. When the sun and the moon basically are in line, their gravitational attraction on the Earth combines and causes a spring tide. There is another type of tide which is called the neap tide. What happens over here? When they are positioned in 90 degrees from each other, their gravitational attraction each pulls water in different directions, causing a neap tide. I repeat again, what are the neap tides? If you look at this, look at the moon tide and the sun tide. How is it placed? And in the first quarter as well as the third quarter. When they are positioned in 90 degrees from each other, their gravitational attraction each pulls water in different directions, causing a neap tide. Greatest effect in spring when moon and sun combine the forces. Now here when we talk about simple things, what are tides which generate electricity? Tides are the periodic rise and fall of the sea surface occurring once or twice a day, driven by the gravitational attraction of the sun and the moon, as I told you all early, and by the earth's rotation. So it's affected by the sun, the moon, and gravitational force basically of the sun and the moon and the rotation of the earth. There are different types of tides, the high tide and the low tide. Now, what are the advantages of tidal energy? It is an inexhaustible source of energy. Tidal energy is environment friendly energy and it doesn't produce greenhouse gases. So basically it's very environment friendly and there are no greenhouse emissions. As 71% of the Earth's surface is covered by water, there is scope to generate this energy on large scale. We are well aware the land and earth is divided, how much, in what proportion. So as 71% of the Earth's surface is covered by water, there is scope to generate this energy on a large scale. Efficiency of tidal power is far greater as compared to coal. So the efficiency when you compare it to coal is far greater and better. So, whether it's to coal or solar or wind energy. The efficiency of the tidal power is 80%. Then what is the next advantage? The tidal energy, it does not require any kind of fuel to run. That's the main thing, students. It does not require any kind of fuel to run. The life of the tidal power plant is very long. So look at the advantages. It's just working for today's times. It is, but anything overused or abused is always wrong. So the life of tidal energy power plant is very long. The large density of water, almost 1,000 times greater than in air, results in very large amounts of energy to get out of tidal currents. Now, because of the density of the water, which is 1,000 times greater than air, it basically results in very large amounts of energy to get out of tidal currents, even if the speed is low. So, these are the advantages of the tidal energy. Now, when we talk about thermal energy, what is thermal energy? Thermal means heat. Thermal energy is the heat made when molecules move. The faster molecules move, higher is the temperature. As I told you all, thermal energy, the temperature differences of sea water helps in generating the energy. The surface water of the tropical region may be 25 degree to 30 degree, and this gradient basically is used to run a generator or produce electricity. Thermal energy is the energy produced from the heat. It is example of kinetic energy. The energy is contained within the system that is responsible for its temperature. Heat is the flow of thermal energy. The heat is generated by the movements of the tiny particles within the object. Basically, the heat, how is it generated? It is generated by the movements of the tiny particles within the object. The faster these particles move, the more heat is generated. It results in an object or a system having a temperature that can be measured. Thermal energy can be transferred from one object or system to another in form of heat. Now, what are the advantages and disadvantages? Basically, over here also when we look at thermal energy, advantages, there's cleaner, no air pollution. Definitely, it decreases the reliance or the dependence on the foreign oil. It reduces carbon dioxide emissions. It has the potential to meet all the world's energy needs. Disadvantages, we'll just have a look, brush through those. It is expensive than power from fossil fuels. It must be in an area where the surface water is warm enough to vaporize the working fluid. It's very natural requirement. It must be in an area where surface water is warm enough to vaporize in the working fluid. Pipes could damage coral reefs. And coral reefs, we already know how is it a very big part of the oceanic resources. It is less efficient than coal. Now coming to this, basically as I said, for energy or for drinking water, as I told you all, desalination process. What is desalination? Desalination process is the removal of salt from sea water. It is done in several ways by heating or freezing water or by electrical processes. These methods are costly and can be implemented where water is desperately needed. So desalination is done in only those places where water is desperately needed, as in desert region. Countries such as Saudi Arabia, Oman, UAE, Spain, Algeria, Cyprus are use desalinated water for drinking. Basically, desalination is the removal of sea water. The cost of desalination has kept desalination from being used more often in developing countries. There are environmental costs for desalination. So you have to pay a price. I mean, there are some environmental costs. The sea life can get sucked into desalination plants. It can kill small ocean creatures, killing small ocean creatures such as baby fish and plankton, and we very well know how plankton plays a very important role. This leads to upsetting of the food chain. Nevertheless, in the near future, many more countries may look forward towards oceans of potable water supply. So we'll first see this. Then trade and transport. Now, how are these oceans used for as in trade and transport? The maritime transport is the transport of people or cargo by water. Basically, transportation done of people and cargo by water is called maritime transportation. Transportation by water is cheaper than any modes of transport. We know the fastest is the air, the costliest is also the air. The seas and oceans are the most convenient natural medium of transport. Now, just a few days ago, we heard of some big ship cargo has been stuck on the Suez Canal, wherein it's the biggest route of sea transport. And how has it affected the economy overall in the world? Because it's the busiest route canal. So the seas and oceans are the most convenient natural medium for transport. The Atlantic Ocean route is the most important and busiest ocean route in the world because it joins the economically and industrially developed regions of the world such as North America and Western Europe. So there are some oceanic routes which are very important as they join two different continents, big continents, where there are busy economical and industrial trades happening or businesses taking place. Wherein tourism, if you can see what is tourism basically over here, the ocean tourism comes in many forms like cruises, scuba diving, fishing, beach tourism. There's a lot of adventures, water sports which is being done nowadays. Such activities are increasingly become popular in today's times. In many areas, massive new tourist developments have been built, which include resorts and marinas. We have seen that there are famous hotels which are coming up near the beaches so that these tourism as tourism spots, and it can be promoted as sports as well as leisure. These activities in turn affect the ocean habitats and environment. See, we are actually getting into their zone, and we are disturbing their existence in a way. By mid 21st century, many countries may face a problem of food security. Besides food, other sources of development are energy, minerals, drinking water, mineral oil. We all know how do we get mineral oil, different kinds of things we get from the marine animals or the sea animals. They can be limited. So these resources are limited on land and are available in specific areas but are largely available in the oceans. So there can be an imbalance because of excessive tourism and not being mindful about when you are a tourist in a certain place. Our future on the earth may depend on the knowledge of the oceans in an increasingly overcrowded world. Now it's become an overcrowded world. We want to achieve and get a lot of things at a fast pace in a very short time. That's the irony. Now, who owns the ocean? Who owns the ocean? We divide the earth's terrain. Terrain is the land, the continental area, and establish geographic boundaries on land. The oceans have no apparent surface features, as in, if you see, they don't have any apparent um, features, just a flat and vast expanse. They extended widely and to longer lengths. This makes it difficult to divide, and so ultimately we all own the oceans. So basically the ocean is not owned by or owed by anybody. It is, we all own the oceans. When ships are developed, they could transport or carry humans across the globe. The governments that represented the oceans agreed that no one owned the oceans. So basically, all the governments which represented these oceans agreed that nobody owns the oceans. This informal agreement was referred to as the law of the sea. The modern foundation of ownership is the United Nations Convention on the Law of Sea, that is UNCLOS, in 1982. It says that, what does this law state that? It says that the country may claim an area extending up to 12 nautical miles from its coast as its own territorial sea. So this is the only leverage where they have been allowed. Any country has been allowed. I repeat, it says that a country can claim an area extending 12 nautical miles from its coast as its own territorial sea. Additionally, it can exploit, in addition to that, students, it can exploit 200 nautical miles of the water beyond its coast as its exclusive economic zone, EEZ. So additionally, it can exploit 200 nautical miles of the water beyond its coast as its exclusive economic zone. Now, international resources. When we talk about the international resources, what are those? There are international institutes which regulate the ocean resources. Now, when I talk about the students, when I'm going to talk about these economic zones, what are these actually? It is an area beyond and adjacent to the territorial sea. And the exception to this rule, exclusive economic zones would overlap. That is the state coastal baselines, which are 740 kilometers apart. Basically, what is the idea of allotting nations with these economic zones, exclusive economic zones? The reason is to give them more control of maritime affairs, that is the maritime transport or the affairs which are outside their territorial limits, with gained acceptance. That is the main idea of allotting these nations with the economic or the exclusive economic zones, to give them more control of maritime affairs outside their territorial limits. So there are international institutions which regulate the ocean resources. The ocean resources beyond 200 nautical miles of the exclusive economic zone belong to open ocean, and no individual country can utilize these without the concurrence of the international institutions. There are various institutions which have been appointed to look over this matter. The last what we come to is marine pollution. Now, when we talk about marine pollution, what is it? The importance of ocean is increasing day by day in various ways. As there are routes, there is business, trade happening, the various uses of the marine sea animals, all of that. So the human dependence on oceans is likely to increase manifolds, many times more so, percentage-wise, in the days to come. However, nowadays, the oceanic waters are getting polluted. Yes, we are seeing that this is the oceanic waters are basically getting polluted. So what is happening with this on a large scale? This causes deterioration. It causes the deterioration of the natural quality of the quality of the ocean water. So when there is leakage, the leakages of oils from transporting, the leakages of oil from oil transporting ships, oil extraction from coastal areas, disposal solid wastes, all of that containing radioactive matter, atomic tests are causing large, you can see there are so many tests, nuclear tests happening. So there is a lot of waste radioactive matter which is there due to these atomic tests are causing large scale pollution of oceanic water. The effluents brought by the river. What is the effluents? The effluents basically the liquid waste or the sewage which is discharged into water. So effluents is nothing but the liquid waste which is brought by river discharges, the disposal of waste from coastal cities. The waste from industries and many other similar factors are polluting the oceanic waters. So this is causing a lot of marine pollution. As a result, what is happening? The very existence of the marine life is threatened because all these causes cause the deterioration of the natural quality of the oceanic water. So as and how, as I've said, that over and all, whether it's any kind of natural environment what we are living in and the nature, we have to nurture it and we have to respect it and not overuse or abuse it and misuse it. So this brings us to the end of lesson 6, ocean resources. Thank you, class.